So I'm going to log in. Can everyone see my screen okay there?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay, great. So I've logged in as Jason, and when you first log into CitizenServe, you go to the welcome page, and it gives you sort of an overview of your things to do today. So you have your task list, which will vary depending on the type of user that you are. If you're doing plan reviews, those are the types of things you'll see. If you're an inspector, you might see your inspections that are due. If you're a code enforcement officer, you'll probably see inspections for your code cases. So this is where you get notified of new assignments or appointments that have been sent to you through the system. So I'll start by setting up a new permit. Let's say we have a new permit application in. So to do that, I'm going to go to Quick Add and select a permit project. And that opens up our permit entry page so we can enter basic information. So let's say that I'm doing a new single-family home. Let's type in a basic description there. And then I'll plug in an address. And I'm just going to plug in that. And I'm going to click Search here. And what this does is it searches the parcel database to see if there's any matching addresses. Because I just plugged in a 1, it's finding anything that starts with 1, Paddock Ave. So this is your parcel data that typically comes from the county. And it'll have address information. Typically it's got ownership, name, and address information, parcel number, legal description, that kind of stuff. So I'll identify my property. I'm just going to grab one down here. And let's say it's this one. I'll click Select All. And that'll pull in that parcel information, the full address, the property owner's name and address, parcel number, and legal description. And this parcel database, as part of your setup, we get the data from you and we import it, and then it's imported periodically, depending on how frequently you get it, we'll refresh that data. So I've got the basic property information, and I can select a district for this if I want to. Or an area if we want to separate it by neighborhood. This just allows you to kind of split it up by certain geographical areas. If you wanted to report and see how many permits do we have in a certain district, you can. And you can also click this icon. That goes into the mapping feature. So you can pull this up, and this will pull up a map of your area. It'll show there's a red mark where the address I've selected is. You can, zoom in, zoom out, that kind of stuff. If you wanted to show different layers, your layers are displayed here under primary layers. You can have additional layers under other if you want. I've selected zoning, so it's showing all of our different zones, and if you click in that zone area, it'll tell you what it is. So this area is an R1. So you can have as many different layers as you want loaded in the system, just depending on what you've already got. If you want to take a look at satellite photos, you can just click satellite photos to get that image as well.
How are those
you can also show other.
How are the layers updated?
How are the layers updated?
As you get the layers and you send them to us, as you modify them within your own Esri system or whatever, you send us the shape files or KML files, and then we'll just load them. While you are in here, you can also take a look at other files. So if I click other open files, I'll see a little bubble there, and I can click it. And it'll show me, what it is, what the number is, and if I want to drill down on that, I can. So I'll close this and come back in and enter the rest of my permit information. So I'm going to come down here and start to enter my permit details. So this drop-down lists all the different types of permits, and this will be whatever your permit types are. This is part of our setup, is we determine what your permit types are. And we enter that in all the system. You can go and update it, change it if you want to, or you can ask us to do it. So I'll select a new construction permit. And once I select that permit type, it checks to see if there's an automatic workflow route or a review route set up for that type. And if there is, it displays it. So this is the review route we've got set up for this type of a permit. So what it's going to do, as soon as we save this, is it's going to go over to whoever's doing the input to do an initial plan check. It's essentially to make sure you have all the documents or applications complete. And then once that one's finished and marked as done, then it's going to go over to building and fire to do the building and the fire plan review. And then once those two are done, it'll jump down to this last one saying the review is complete, so the permit could be issued. So this review route varies depending on your types. We configure it, who gets it, what time frames, when do we trigger different tasks is all built around what your process is. And if I said, oh, we don't need to do a fire, I could take that one out if I wanted to. So you can change these if you need to. I'm just going to select all my details, all my defaults, and hit Save. And then I'll put in the rest of our information. I'm going to copy our project description down here. You can have, when we set up this permit, we'll be able to put multiple permits under the same project. So when you get a new project that comes in, if you're going to issue a building permit and an electrical and maybe a separate permit for demo, you can group all three of those permits under the same project. So the basic information like the address, your contractors, if they are the same, that information will all come in. You won't have to re-enter it again. I'll select a status for this permit. We'll call it under review. And now I'm going to enter an applicant. It's already listing my property owner because I selected them in a prior step. But if I want to select someone else as our applicant, I can click Add Contact and go search and see if we can find that person in the system. So I'm going to search for Acme Construction. I'll do a search. If they're in the system, they'll be listed. If they're not, I can click New to set up if we've got a new contractor file. I'll select this one. Just click Select. Shows me all their information. If I need to update phone numbers or emails, I can. And then I'll just select Add, which will put them in on this project. So I'm going to leave our dates blank here because we aren't going to issue it yet or anything. But I'll select a use of building. We'll say it's residential. And then this information here, everything down to here, these are custom fields. So whatever your permit information that you capture, we'll set up custom fields for those. And they can be drop-downs, they can be checkboxes, fill in the blanks, lots of different types. And typically the way we do this is we get your permit applications, and that gives us a pretty good indication of what sorts of fields you want to capture. And we'll put that in, and then through your setup, we'll work with you to define if we need to make changes or add additional fields. So in this example, we have a few fields. We've got a field for occupancy type, and this is just a drop-down list of different occupancy codes. So we'll say that it is a residential, and let's say the construction type is an IB, and maybe our square footage is 1,500. Now when I save this permit, it's going to go calculate the valuations based on the occupancy, the construction type, and the square footage I've entered. You don't have to set it up to do this. You can manually enter your valuation. If you just use a declared valuation that your contractors provide, you can do that. But if you wanted to automatically set that up, you can load all of your valuation tables into the system and have it automatically calculate that. And let's say that this building also had a garage, so we want to add the garage as well. And we'll say it's 500 square feet. And if we wanted to add additional contractors, we could. If we wanted to say that Acme is doing everything, we could do that as well. So I've got all my basic information in. I'm going to come down here and click Save, which is going to set up our project file and assign our permit number. So if we take a look, this is the project file. So it's assigned an automatic number, which is just the current year plus a sequential number. And then it's also assigned a permit number for this permit application. And so the permit numbers are based on, you have up to 3 characters for the beginning part that you can set differently for each type of permit. And then it's just a year and a sequential number. These tabs across the top let me view different information about this project. So if I were to click the Reviews tab, it'll show me different reviews happening on this project or permit. The inspections will show us all the inspections going on this permit or project. Activities are just tasks that are other than inspections or reviews. They might be like, hearing board commissions and things like that. The documents will let us view any documents that we've uploaded or generated from the system. So if we upload our plans as electronic documents, those will go there. As we generate notices and letters, they'll all be contained in the Documents tab as well. The Contacts tab will list all the people involved in it. And the History tab is a running log, kind of like an audit trail of changes that have been made to the file. So if I pull up our permit again, we can take a look at how it calculated the fees and valuation. So it came up with a valuation of $303,000, and if you're interested in how it came up with that, you can click this little icon and it'll give you kind of a breakdown of how it determined that. So it said, okay, the first item we looked at was that it was a residential 3, it was an IB, and it was 1,500 square foot. And so we know the multiplier for a R3 IB is 171.12, and so that was that number. And then the same sort of logic applies for the garage or the utility structure, and that's how it comes up with the total. And then if we scroll down into our fees section, you can set up automatic fees. So in this example, we're just charging a fee based on valuation. We've got I think it's a 1% state surcharge that can be added, and then plan review fees are 65% of permit fees. So when we do your setup, we get your fee structures, and we'll set them up in the system based on however you're currently applying your fees. You can also add additional fees. So if you wanted to add an additional reinspection fee, you could. So you can add your own line item sort of fees as needed. And so let's say that this contractor paid the plan check fees at this point. We can plug that payment in. So I'll say today, and let's say it's a check, and it was number, I don't know, 5511, and we received it from Acme, and he just paid these plan check fees, so I'll enter that amount. If I click the calculator icon, that'll just apply that payment to this permit and re-retrieve the permit and show me the information. So I can see that I've got a balance due of $3,000. So that's how you do the initial entry of the permit application. Does that part make sense, or do you have any questions on that?
Oh, that's fine.
All right. Let's take it the review side of things. So I'm going to go to the Reviews tab. And as we looked at briefly, when we first set this type, it pulled up that window that showed us our review tasks. So here they are represented with actual dates. So right now we can tell that the first task, the initial review, that's been assigned to Jason Todd, it's under review, and we can tell that it's currently on his task list because he's got a due date, but he hasn't completed it yet. So if I come over here back to my welcome page, I'll see it here on my task list. So let's say I'm going to do this review. I can pull it up. And these are custom fields as well, so you can set up your own checklist, if you will, for the different types of whatever your checks are. So in this example, we're saying, oh, we want to make sure we have project data, we want to make sure we get a grading plan and the foundation, and we can check off the items we got. Now, if let's say we didn't get the landscape plan and that was something we had to have, we can mark this as incomplete, or I don't have incomplete in here. I'll leave this under review, but we could add an option for incomplete. And I'm going to send them a letter that says that we've got an incomplete submittal. So to do that, I'll click Generate Letter, and that gives me a list of different letters that are set up in the system. So all of your notices will get as part of your setup, and we'll configure them in the system. You can add more in the future if you want to. You can change them. You can do whatever you want. So I'm going to set incomplete application notice, and I'll click Generate Letter, and that just grabs my template and pulls in the basic data. So this is just a simple letter. So it's pulled in the date, the name, the applicant's information. Here are those fields I checked off, so it pulls them in there. So you could print this and mail it or email it or whatever, however you wanted to deliver it to them. And when I close this, it asks if I'd like to save a copy of this letter. If I select yes, it's going to save a copy here on the Documents tab. So if in the future I need to pull it up and take a look at it again, I can just pull it up and see that exact document. Now, if we wanted to attach copies of our plans and the different submittals that our contractor provided, we can do that by coming over here to the Add option and selecting Multiple Docs. And let's say we've got floor plans or something that they provided, and maybe, I don't know, a grading plan. I can click Browse and then go find those documents wherever I might have saved them on my hard drive. So I'll just pick those two as an example. Click Save. That's going to pull it off of your hard drive and load it into the system, and they'll be displayed under the Documents tab. So if anyone else who has access to the system could pull this up and take a look at it. And you can attach as many files as you want and as many different types of documents as you need to. So let's say we got those incomplete items back in. So I'm going to go back to my initial review task, and we can say, Okay, that's all. We've gotten everything now. We're going to call this complete, and we'll plug in a completion date for the date that we got all that information. And I'll click Save. So by doing that, it triggered the next tasks on the review route, which in this example are a fire plan review and a building plan review. So once I've marked this one done, that's what triggered it to go on to these two. And when these two are done, that's what's going to trigger this last task. And again, this is completely customizable. We set it up based on whatever your process is. So right now I know that this application is sitting on Kurt Russell and Jason Todd's task list for their review. So I'm going to jump back over here and just kind of show you how that process works. So here it is, a building plan review. If I'm ready to do my review, I can pull this up. If I want to go look at the documents that have been attached to that, I can do that. If I want to look at the building permit application, I can click this icon to see those details. And when I'm ready to start putting in my plan comments, you can do this a few different ways. One of the ways that we do it is we can load, if you have a list of common corrections, if you sort of work from the template sort of basis for your plan reviews, we can load those comments for you. So I'll take a look at our comments by clicking this icon. And then we just have different, canned statements to start out your plan review comments. And you can filter this list. So if you said, you know what, I'm doing a residential addition, you could grab that option and just check off the items you'd like to include in this plan review. So this list and your comments are going to be whatever your list and comments are. So I'll just grab a few and click Save. That takes those standard comments and plugs them into my review task. At this point, I could come in here and I could, make changes. I don't know, basement. It doesn't make any sense, but you can add any changes you'd like. And if you want to, you can track statuses. So if you want to have status for, it's an open item or they resolved it or whatever the case may be, you can have different statuses.
Oh, just one that.
You can also add, if you had a comment that wasn't on your checklist, something completely specific, you can just add a new item and then plug in whatever you'd like here. So if I finish my plan review and I want to generate my plan check report, I can do that. So I'm going to say that this has been approved. Maybe my comments were just, informational. I'll mark that I finished my review today, and I want to generate my plan review or my plan check document. So again, I click this Generate Letter icon. That gives me a list of options that I can choose what different sorts of letters. So I'll say my plan check report. Click this Generate icon. If I wanted to go edit my letter before I generated it, I could. This takes you into like a little word processor where you can edit the actual document. But if I can just take my standards, I'll just click Generate Letter. And then here's a sample report. Again, your reports are going to look however they look today or however you'd like them to look. So in this example, we have sort of a cover letter. I'll show you in a print preview so you get a feel for what the document looks like. Page 1 is just a cover letter in this example, and page 2 are those comments I selected. So you can kind of make this look however you'd like it to. So again, I can email this, I could print it, mail it, whatever your process is. I'll close it. Again, it says, do you want to save a copy of this? If I select yes, it's going to go here under my Documents tab. Now you can lock these documents. Right now I could come back and edit this. So if I want to go in and make a change, so then a few days later before I sent it out I could. You can also come in here and lock the document by closing it. And if you close it, then no one will be able to modify that document anymore. The little edit icon is gone. Only people with specific rights would be able to go in and either unlock that or edit it. So if we come back to our Reviews tab, now I can take a look at it. So this is where you're going to look when someone goes, well, what's going on? What's the process? Where is this at in the stage? You can look at this to tell, okay, I know this is marked, so I know buildings finished their review, and we're just waiting for fire. So fire would do their review in a very similar manner. I'm just going to log off and come back in as Kurt Russell, and we can just take a look at that. I'll click log off, and then we'll come back in. So again, Kurt gets notified that he's got a plan review because it's in his task list. You can also have emails sent out if you want, but this will always be here. until he completes it. So let's say if Kurt comes in, he does his plan review. Again, he can go over the documents if you would like to go take a look at different information. He can pull the permit up if he wants to see additional information on that permit. You know, he can navigate as he needs to. So let's say Kurt's a pretty quick guy and he's already done. He'll mark it done. So now if we come back into our reviews, we can see that these are all done, and now it's moved back on to Jason's list to go ahead and issue the permit since the review is complete. So I'm going to log off and come back in as Jason, and we can look at how do you issue the permit. So again, this is how I get notified the review's been completed. I can pull it up. And if I come here, I can take a look at all those reviews. This little icon lets me expand things. So if I wanted to look at the specific comments, I could look at that to see all those comments. Or I can reduce it so I can just say, okay, we're ready to issue this. Everyone's approved it. So if I'm ready to issue the permit, I can go to the Permits tab, call the contractor. He comes in to get it. I can come here. Now I'll hit Enter Issued. That'll plug in my approval and issue dates. It'll set the expiration date if you have a predetermined, you know, if things are good for 6 months or however long, we can set that automatically. And then let's say that we've received the final payment. We can plug that payment in. We paid it. And let's see, the balance due is 3224-12. So our permit's been issued, it's ready to go. Now we just need to generate the actual permit document. So that's similar to our other documents. We just select permit here. And you can set up certain checks. So you could have a check that says if the balance isn't paid in full, don't let them print it or warn them if certain things aren't done. So you can set up warnings to prohibit or warn people when the permit's generated if it doesn't meet certain criteria. So I'll show you this in a print preview just so you can get a feel for it. The permit document will basically look however your document looks or however you'd like it to look. So we can pull any information that's been entered on the permit into the document. So I could print this, mail it, have the contractor pick it up, whatever you want to do. Click. Again, it asks if I want to save it. I can say yes, and it'll attach a copy of that permit here on our permits on our documents tab. So that's the review and issuing process. Does that part make sense? Does it look like it might work with what you currently do?
Oh, yeah, looks real good.
Great. So let's say we've got construction going now. We're ready to do some inspections. The contractor might call you up and to schedule the inspection. We also have an online component where your applicants can apply for things online. They can request inspections online. You can kind of control what options they have in that area. But let's, for this example, say that they called it in. So if they're good contractors, then they have the permit number, which they always do, right? You can plug the permit number in here and pull it up. But they never have the permit number, right? And sometimes they don't even know where they're at when they want an inspection. You can go into Advanced Find, where you can search on any of these options. You could search on the permit type. You could search on the address. You could search on the contractor's name. So if they don't know the permit number and they're not really sure the address, you can kind of search on different things to try to find it. If all else fails, they hopefully know what their business name is, and you can pull it up that way. So let's say I found my permit. I'll go ahead and pull it up here. We're ready to do an inspection. I'll click this icon, which is Request Inspection. So here's a list of different inspection types. This will be whatever your inspection types are. In this example, I'll just say we're going to do a footing inspection. And let's say that Jason Todd, this hardworking guy, he's also going to do all our inspections too. We can pill a date, and I can look at the calendar. If there's anything on his schedule for that day, you know, you'll see it. And let's say maybe we're going to try to squeeze it in here at 3 o'clock. So I'll say at 3 o'clock, we're going to do that inspection and save it. So when Jason logs in again, if he's also an inspector, if they're set up as specific appointments, so if you have times, either morning, afternoon, or specific dates and times that you schedule those for, we'll set them up as appointments, and then they'll show up on his calendar. And you can view your calendar in a day view like this. You can view it in a month view. You can view it in a week view. There's lots of different ways that you can take a look at it.
Does that calendar interface with the Outlook calendar?
It does not.
Okay.
So if I'm ready to do this inspection, I can just click it, pull it up, and then we can input our inspection status and generate an inspection report if we want to. And the inspection reports kind of vary. I mean, some cities they'll set up the inspection reports to be completely done online, and some of our customers, they just want their piece of paper and their clipboard, and they'll just keep doing that, and they'll scan them and attach them. So you can kind of go either way. And we've had a lot of customers that when they start, they keep their inspection reports paper just because it's harder to get people to move. And then when everyone starts to get used to the system and how it works, then they'll change to an electronic inspection report, and it's usually easier for the inspectors to kind of transition in a gradual process. So in this example, we just have a very simple checklist. These can be as in-depth or simple as you want them to be. There can be as many options as you want. However you want to set it up, we set it up. We typically, again, we look at your inspection reports, and that's how we take the first stab at it. We'll look at your report, we'll set it up like that, and then we'll walk through it with you and modify it as we need to. So let's say that this inspection's been approved. And these drop-downs throughout the system are all configurable. So if you don't like these terminologies, if you use a pass-fail, you add pass-fail in there. So you can use whatever options you'd like in the drop-downs. So I'll say it's approved, and I'll plug in the date that I actually did this inspection. And if I want to generate an inspection report, I can, just by clicking Generate Letter. And I'll generate my inspection report. Again, this is just another template or form letter that you can make look however you want. I see a lot of tables sometimes where they'll do yes, no, NA sort of options, fill in the blanks, just however you want to set it up, we can generally do. So again, I close it. It says, do you want to save a copy? If I do, I've got a permanent copy of this inspection report forever. So the inspection process kind of keeps doing the same thing. You call in inspections, you plug them in, you enter your results, you generate the report. That part make sense?
Yep.
All right. So let's say this building is constructed and we want to issue a certificate of occupancy. To issue the CO, it's just another type of a document, certificate of occupancy. And again, I can set certain criteria for generating this document. I can say they're not allowed to print a CO unless we have a final inspection that's been approved, or whatever criteria you would like to apply. But if this one's ready to go, I can just click Generate Letter, and then here's a sample of what a CO might look like. And you can make them look however you want. Fix my margins there. You can put as much or as little information as you'd like. And again, I close it. It says, do you want to save a copy? And then it goes here on this document tab. So over the life of the project, information will continue to be added. Your documents, any notices you've sent, your inspections. If you want to take a look at what inspections have occurred, those will all be listed here. Any reviews you've done, those will be listed here. And then you can add any additional information with these options here. So that's a 30-minute overview of the permitting process. Do you have any questions, or is there anything that you guys do that I haven't really showed you that you'd like to take a look at?
Do you have like a contractor module where you can track contractor licensing for expiration and insurance expiration and things like that?
Yep. You can do it a couple of different ways. If you're actually issuing them licenses, you would typically use our business licensing component, where you can, track that and send renewal notices and do all that kind of stuff. If you just want to track different licenses with them, you can set up custom fields for a contractor. So in this example, we just have a simple license number here and an expiration date there. So you could have, if you've got a state license and a city and a county license, you can just add additional fields for all those different types of things, their insurance, all that kind of stuff.
Is this set up so that when you go to do a permit and you put in Joe Smith, Acme Construction, does it kick it out on the permit, say the permit can't be issued because he doesn't have a license? Is it linked like that?
You could set up a constraint on that so that you could have it restrict that. If his license is expired or if his insurance is expired, you can set up different controls, and those controls can say, well, we want to warn them, but if they still want to issue it, we'll let you issue it. Or we say, there's just no way you can get around this. You cannot issue it until this date is satisfied.
Okay, that's awesome.
And that's just part of your setup. And what business rules do you have about issuing permits or COs or different documents?
What's the red exclamation point flashing on the screen? What's that mean?
That means there's an alert on this contractor, or this contact. If I click it, you can see what that alert is. And you can set it up so that if I wanted to be warned of these alerts, when I try to schedule an inspection or issue a permit, it'll show me this, whatever the alert is. So you can put alerts on people, and you could also put alerts on a property. So if I put an alert on this property, I can go into alerts, new property alert, and say, do not issue permits on this address until code violations have been resolved. I can't type and talk, ever. It just doesn't work. So if you put this on this property, anytime someone pulls up any kind of a file on this property, whether it's a code file, a permitting file, whatever it is, if it's the same address, they'll see that alert and you can pull it up and see it.
Okay, how about your planning and zoning information?
Okay. The planning and zoning part works pretty much the same as the permitting part. The primary difference is when I'm adding permits to projects, they are planning and zoning types of permits. So in this permit drop-down, you'll have different options, whether it's a rezone or a variation or variance, whatever the different types of applications are. Those will come in as in the same general process. You'll set up separate custom fields for those types. The review process will work generally the same. It'll be obviously a different review route. It'll go to different departments with different deadlines. You can attach the documents. So it works basically the same as the permit. It's just set up as a separate type, as a planning and zoning type of a permit.
Sure.
Would you like to see the code part real quick?
Sure.
Code enforcement? Okay. I'm going to log off. And it's pretty similar. Okay, let's go in. That is the same, similar look and feel. Here's my to-do list. Typically with code enforcement, their inspections don't always get done on the day that they schedule it because it varies. They kind of get to it when they can get to it. So we usually don't set those up as specific appointments. We set them up as tasks so that they stay on their list until they finish them. So let's say we had a new code enforcement complaint come in. I could add it similar to the way I do a permit. I go to Quick Add, Code Compliance. And the first thing I'll do is enter the name of the person who's making the complaint. And if they're anonymous or they don't give it, you can skip this part and leave it blank. But I'll put my name in, see if I'm already in there, if I'm a chronic complainer. And I am. So we'll hit select. That's going to pull in my name and phone numbers. If you get any additional contact information for that person, you can. And then we'll just jump down here and we can put in a brief description. So let's say we've got some weeds and junk vehicle. Something like that. And I can plug in an address. I can't remember what I did on that last one. Let's do one paddock. See if I can remember which one I typed in. I think I pulled, I have no idea which one I pulled, but I think I have one here. We'll try this one. So once I select that address, if I see this icon, it means that there's other things going on this address. So if I click this, I can see what those are. I can say, oh, we've got a current, single-family home being built at this address. So if there's multiple files, they'll all be listed, and you can drill down as you need to. So then I've got my basic code information, and I can go ahead and schedule an inspection. So let's say we want to get out there tomorrow. I can just select a due date of tomorrow. Well, tomorrow's Saturday, Monday, and hit save. So once that's put in, anyone can plug that in, and as soon as it gets saved, it's going to go to that inspector's task list. So let's say we went out and we did an inspection, I'll just jump back here, and here's one that I can enter. Let's say I did this inspection. I pull up my inspection report, and I type in my notes. Let's say, inspection complete, violations found, issue NOV. Whatever your kind of general comments are. And I'll plug in the date for this. And let's say I want to schedule a reinspection. To do that, I'm just going to click this Add Follow-up, which saves this inspection activity and lets me select a reinspection. So let's say I want to do a reinspection, and I want to be reminded to do this inspection in about 2 weeks. So I plugged in my inspection, and I've scheduled my reinspection. Let's say I want to add the violations that I found to this property. I can come over here under the Add option and click Add Violation. And you can select the violation by the section code if you know that. If you don't know that or if you're not sure, you can select it by the description. So let's say we have some junk. And if you click this View icon, it'll show you that full text. And this text is typically your ordinance text, and it'll print out on our violation notices. So we can select that. And if I want to put any comments in here, I can say, you need to remove the mattress from your front yard. Whatever your specific comments are. These can also be printed on your notices. So you can print your ordinance, your legal text, but the inspector can put a note in here to also be printed. And you can use a spell checker. So if you're not the best speller, like I am, you can run a spell check on it before you generate your notices. So let's say we saw another violation out there. I can click Save, which saves this one, and lets me add the next one. So I can choose another thing. Let's say we got some weeds, and I'll just click Finish there to save that. So the Violation tab is going to list all the violations that are on the property. So this one already had a couple. That's why there's more on there. I'm going to delete a couple of these just so we don't have doubles in there. The little red X lets you delete things. Let's get rid of that one too. Each violation can have a separate status. So if you go out on your reinspection and they resolve the weeds, but they still have the junk and the vehicles, you can close this one and leave these two open, and when you send the next notice, it'll only have those open items on it. So now let's attach. Let's say we took some pictures. I can click Add Document. And let's say we've got a photo. I'll click Browse. And let's see, here's a junky car. Click Save, and that's going to save it to our Documents tab where we could pull it up and take a look at it.
A junk car?
It's a classic. I'm working on that. I'm going to be done this weekend. So now I want to send them a violation notice. I just come over here under Add and select Letter. And we want to send this letter to our property owner, so I'll select a violation letter next to their name. We've set this letter up to print pictures, and you can do this or not do it, depends on how you want to do it. So this document is set up to print our photos. So as soon as I select it, it says, okay, well, which pictures do you want to print? Because sometimes inspectors will take 25 pictures, and you really only want to print 2 of them. So you could select the ones that you want, or you could click this icon, this link to select all of them. I'll select those 2, hit Finish, and then I'm just going to go generate my letter, just like I generate any other letter. And here's a sample. So in this example, it pulled in the violation code and description, that full text, and then also my comments. So your legal ordinance text will come in there, your comments, and if you plugged in a correct by date, those will come in there as well. And then on the second page, we printed our photos. You can print your photos wherever you want. We just printed them on the second page. I don't know what that is. Again, I'll close it. Yeah, I want to save a copy, and I've got a record of that letter, the date that it was sent, who sent it, and if you want to look at it, you can. So so I can forget all about this file, and in 2 weeks, it's going to pop up on my list to remind me to go out and do another reinspection. So that's kind of an overview of the code side of things. It works. The look and feel is very much the same as permitting, so if you have people who do both, it's easy to kind of transition, and it's easy for code folks to take a look at what's going on in permitting. This one, if I were to click our other files, oh, this one's got a ton of files on it, so here's a history of lots of stuff. You could click any one of these to go take a look at those different permits and whatever history might be going on that file.
Okay. Hey, that's pretty good. Can you show us something that you have on creating reports and things?
Sure. So if I go into reports, there are a lot of canned reports that are, they're canned reports, so nobody ever uses them. I mean, I guess some people do, but they're okay. They do the basics. But typically what we do is the report writer and custom reports. So you can create your own report. If I go into the advanced report wizard, it lets you pick different types of options. So I could do a detail report, which is just a simple list. I can do a detail and summary, which lets me do groups, or I can just do a summary, which is a kind of a grouping thing, or I can look at things on a map. So I'll just do a detail report for now because it's simple. I'll hit next. And then here it says, well, what sort of information are you trying to report on? And the point of this is it tries to take complex relationships between your data and put them in choosable groups for you so that your average user doesn't have to worry about how do I join this table with that table. So let's say I'm interested in, let's say I'm looking for files and property owners. I'll select my data model and hit next. And then here it says, well, these are all the fields that you can choose from based on the type of data you selected in the previous step. So I can just select any fields I want and add those. Let's get description in there and address. So here's the columns or the fields that will show up on my report. I can click next, and this lets me change the sort order. So maybe I want it sorted by open date, and this lets me change the order that the fields appear on the report. So maybe I want it to be file number and then address. You can change this. You can make it ascending or descending order. Click next. And then here's where we're going to put in our criteria. So let's say I just want anything that has a status equals open. And maybe I only want to see things that have been opened be greater than or equal to January 1st of this year. And you can put in as many conditions as you'd like. If you click more conditions, you can just keep going. I'll click Finish. That runs my report, gives me the basic list. I can click on the file number to drill down if I want to. And then I have different options over here. I can save the report. I can export it to a PDF. I can export it to Excel. I can do a mail merge. And so that typically is if you want to do a batch notification, you can do a mail merge so that maybe you have a permit expiring letter. You might have a letter, we want to run a report, find everyone who's going to expire next month and send them all this letter. Or you can do an email merge, which is generally the same thing, but instead of a piece of paper, they get an email. And then you can also, under reports, there is a custom report. I think this is probably a custom report. Yeah. So this is a custom report. Let's take a look. I don't even know what this report looks like, but let's go see. I'll run it. This is a turnaround report. So this is a custom report that somebody on our staff has created just as an example. So when you have a specific report you need, you just say, hey, if you can't get it through that report writer, it handles probably 80% of the basic reports, but sometimes you'll get a complex report that you just can't get with that. You ask our staff, we'll set up a custom report for you, which will be basically, whatever you want it to do. Anything that you've been recording in the system, we can generally report on unless it's something that's embedded in notes. I mean, that might be more difficult, but generally we can report on anything you want. So you can have as many custom reports as you want. You can set up different folders. So if you wanted to move this folder, and I mean, I've seen people who have 29 folders and 50 reports in each one. So you can kind of manage those however you'd like to. You can share your reports. So if I really like this report and I wanted to give somebody a copy of it, I could say, oh, let's let Bruce have a copy of that and save it, and it'll get copied to Bruce's folder. He'll have access to that report as well. So reporting is just one of those things that, changes all the time. You just never know when you're going to need something new. Priorities change. So reporting is something that we focus on quite a bit for our customers just to, make sure they always have access to their data in whatever format they need.
What about mapping? I mean, could you show a map of where all these coded violations took place?
You can. If I go into the Find the Property, this sort of just gives me a general mapping feature. So if I say, let me go to a certain address just so I can get in the general area. We'll say 111 Paddock. We've been using that one. So let me zoom out. You can, on this map, you can say, show me all the open files that we've got. You could say, show me just permitting things, show me just code things. So you can kind of look at different options on the map in addition to all your layers. And it's not showing those files we plugged in before. I must not have access under this user login.
So is this just all Google-based, or can you add your own GIS information?
The core thing is the Google Maps is the platform that it operates on, but we can take your shape files that you've created in Esri or other systems and load them into the system.
Okay, thanks.